Hey, baby, we had a great time. Stay in the light. It's all good. Get your rest. You are the crack pipe. That's my new name for you, crack pipe. Or should I call you CP?
Oh, savage! Oh!
The Diddy Files, inside America's most shocking celebrity trial. All you have to know, we cover live the full trial. Please subscribe and selected notification to not miss an episode. Here is the episode 1. What you just heard isn't from a movie. It's not fiction. It's a real audio message that Sean Diddy Combs sent to his ex-girlfriend after what prosecutors call a night of forced sexual encounters. And it's just the tip of the iceberg in what might be the most shocking celebrity trial of our lifetime. I'm about to take you inside a world of power, control, and alleged crimes that will make you question everything you thought you knew about one of music's biggest moguls. Are you ready to discover what really happened behind closed doors? Because once you hear this story, you'll never look at celebrity culture the same way again. Chapter 1, The Empire, Sean Combs, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy. Diddy. Whatever name you know him by, there's no denying the empire he built. From bad boy records to fashion lines, from vodka brands to a media empire, this man didn't just make music. He made himself into a brand worth over $1 billion. But here's what I want you to think about as we dive into this story. How well do we really know the celebrities we admire? How much of what we see is carefully crafted image, and how much is reality? Because on September 17th, 2024, federal prosecutors unsealed an indictment that painted a very different picture of Sean Combs, not as a music mogul or business genius, but as the alleged leader of a criminal enterprise. The charges: racketeering conspiracy. That's RICO, the same law used to take down the mafia, sex trafficking by force, fraud, and coercion, and transportation to engage in prostitution. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. These are just allegations, right? Rich people get accused of things all the time. And you're absolutely right to think that way. In America, you're innocent until proven guilty. But the evidence that's come out during this trial, it's unlike anything we've seen in a celebrity case. Let me put this in perspective for you. If convicted on all charges, Diddy faces a minimum of 15 years in federal prison. But it could be much worse than that. The maximum sentence? Life behind bars. We're not talking about a slap on the wrist or a few months in minimum security. We're talking about a man who could spend the rest of his life in a federal penitentiary. So what exactly is the government alleging? According to prosecutors, Diddy didn't just run entertainment businesses. He ran what they call a criminal enterprise. They claim he used his power, his money, and his influence to coerce women into sexual situations they didn't want to be in. They say he organized elaborate sexual encounters that could last for days, involving drugs, intimidation, and violence. But here's where it gets really interesting, and I want you to pay close attention to this. The government isn't just relying on testimony. They have audio recordings. They have physical evidence. They have witnesses who worked for him, lived with him, and saw what allegedly happened behind closed doors. Now, I have to ask you this. If someone offered you $1 billion, but told you that to keep it, you might have to do terrible things to other people. Would you take it? It's an uncomfortable question, isn't it? Because it forces us to think about what we're willing to sacrifice for power and money. The prosecution's case centers around what they call freak-offs. Organized sexual encounters that Diddy allegedly orchestrated and controlled. But we'll get into the disturbing details of those in just a moment. First, I want you to understand the scope of what we're dealing with here. This isn't just about one person's alleged crimes. This case has the potential to reshape how we think about power in the entertainment industry. It's about whether money and influence can protect you from consequences. It's about whether victims will be believed when they speak out against someone with unlimited resources to fight back. And speaking of resources, Diddy has assembled what experts are calling a dream team of lawyers. We're talking about attorneys who have defended cult leaders, rappers, and some of the most high-profile defendants in recent memory. The estimated cost of his defense? $15 million. That's more money than most people will see in their entire lifetime, spent just on lawyers. But here's what money can't buy: the truth. And over the next 24 minutes, we're going to explore what that truth might be. We're going to hear from witnesses who say they were there. We're going to examine evidence that was seized from his homes, and we're going to ask the hard questions that this case raises about power, consent, and justice in America. So buckle up, because this story is about to get a lot more intense. And I have to warn you, some of what you're about to hear is deeply disturbing. But it's important that we talk about it, because understanding how power can be abused is the first step in preventing it from happening again. Are you ready to go deeper? Because in the next chapter, we're going to explore the system that prosecutors say Diddy created. A system they call hotel nights, or freak-offs. And trust me, once you understand how this allegedly worked, you'll never look at celebrity culture the same way again. Chapter 2. The hotel nights. Imagine for a moment that you're staying at a luxury hotel. You're expecting room service, maybe a nice view, comfortable beds. Normal hotel things, right? But what if I told you that in some hotel rooms, according to federal prosecutors, something very different was happening? Something that would last not hours, but days? Welcome to what the government calls Diddy's hotel nights, also known as freak-offs. And before we go any further, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to describe isn't based on rumors or gossip. This comes directly from testimony given under oath in federal court by people who say they were there. Jonathan Perez took the stand in this trial. He was Diddy's personal assistant, which means he saw things that most people never would. What he described should make your stomach turn. According to Perez's testimony, his job wasn't just to manage Diddy's schedule or answer his phone calls. He was responsible for setting up these hotel nights. And the preparation was elaborate and specific. We're talking about a system, folks. This wasn't spontaneous. It was planned, organized, and repeated. Here's what Perez says he had to do. Set up hotel rooms with specific items. Food, yes, but also oil, lubricant, honey, and the lights had to be set to red. Red lighting. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't about creating a romantic atmosphere. According to the testimony, this was about creating an environment for something much darker. Now, I want you to imagine being in that hotel room. But here's the thing. According to the allegations, not everyone there wanted to be there. The government claims that women were coerced, threatened, and forced to participate in sexual acts while Diddy watched. And how long did these events last? Perez testified that they could go on for 12 hours, sometimes a full day. Can you imagine that? 12 to 24 hours of what prosecutors describe as forced sexual encounters. But it gets worse. According to the testimony, participants would appear exhausted afterward. So exhausted that they needed medical attention. IV drips. Intravenous fluids to help them recover. Let that sink in for a moment. These encounters were so intense, so draining, that people needed medical intervention afterward. Now, you might be wondering, how do we know all this? How can prosecutors prove something that happened behind closed doors? Well, they have evidence, physical evidence. When federal agents raided Diddy's Los Angeles home, they found boxes. Boxes of Astroglide. That's a personal lubricant. Not one box, not two boxes. Multiple boxes. Enough to supply what prosecutors say was an ongoing operation. They also found lingerie, shoes, and dresses. But here's what makes this evidence particularly damning. According to testimony, these items weren't for Diddy. They were for the women he allegedly forced to participate in these encounters. His assistant, Jonathan Perez, testified that part of his job was buying these items for women to look good for Diddy. Think about that for a moment. You're being told what to wear, how to look, and what to do. Does that sound like consent to you? Or does it sound like control? But there's another element to this story that makes it even more disturbing. The drugs. According to testimony, these encounters often involved ecstasy and cocaine. Now, I want you to think about this carefully. If someone is under the influence of drugs, can they really consent to what's happening to them? The law says no, and that's part of why these charges are so serious. The government alleges that Diddy used drugs not just for his own pleasure, but as a tool of control, to make people more compliant, to break down their resistance, to make them do things they wouldn't normally do. And here's something that should really make you think. According to the testimony, there were regular participants in these events. Men who were essentially on call to participate in these encounters. The government has named some of them. Antoine and Cabrale, described as male escorts who were frequently involved in these hotel nights. Now, I have to ask you something, and I want you to really think about your answer. If you knew this was happening, what would you do? Would you speak up? Would you call the police? Or would you stay quiet because the person doing it was rich and powerful? It's easy to say we do the right thing, but the reality is that speaking out against someone with unlimited resources is terrifying. They can hire the best lawyers, they can destroy your reputation, they can make your life a living hell. And that brings us to the most important witness in this entire case. A woman who decided that staying quiet wasn't an option anymore. A woman who, according to her testimony, endured years of abuse before finally finding the courage to speak out. The government calls her Jane. That's not her real name. It's a pseudonym to protect her identity. But her story? Her story is what this entire case is built on. And what she says happened to her is so disturbing, so graphic, that it's hard to believe it could happen in 2024. But it did happen, according to her testimony. And in the next chapter, we're going to hear Jane's story in her own words. Fair warning, what you're about to hear is deeply disturbing. But it's important that we listen, because understanding how abuse works is the first step in preventing it. Are you ready to hear from the woman who may bring down one of the most powerful men in entertainment? Because Jane's story is about to change everything you think you know about this case. Stay tuned for the next episode. See you at Black Rumors TV and Live from Diddy's trial.